please go ahead and ask it. And if you are in the audience and have some information, I know there might be a couple farmers in the audience, apart from our farmer panel, that have some installations. Please feel free to share your experience and your knowledge with us too. I'm going to turn it over to Megan Cradle, the Dairy Center, and she can give us a little bit more info about the presentation.
Well, I'll be really brief. I think you guys have quite the exciting program today. We're really excited just to be able to serve as a site for you for these types of programs and to be able to provide a location that everyone can congregate and have such opportunities. So we're just really happy to be able to work with the Winneshiek Energy District and NICC to have a place to offer these things. So I hope everyone walks away with some good information today.
All right, so we'll get started, and Andy Johnson, the director of the Winneshiek Energy District, is going to start us off with giving us a little bit about farm energy context and renewable applications on farms. So if you get bored or snooze off, you can always look over here to see the schedule for the day. Otherwise, I'll get up back up front and make new jumping jacks. Just to keep it moving. All right, take it away, Andy.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, a little quick housekeeping too. If you don't know, restrooms are down the hall on the right, pretty close. Feel free to get up and head out anytime. We'll try not to go on forever here, but we're going to try and just get through what we want to get through here so we can move on to refreshments, actually to the expo, and a lot more. Many of you have already started talking with installers and contractors out here, and I think those conversations will go on for quite a while after we talk in here. So I'm going to provide some context for farm energy and how solar fits into that picture. Kelly is then going to talk more about the financial details and incentives and opportunities, and then we'll have the panel, of course, and a lot of Q&A. But feel free to jump in on questions, please, as we go along. This is going to be a not necessarily 30,000-foot view, but a little bit of a quick overview.
Is sound good, or do we need a mic? Good?
Good.
Everyone
It's okay.
Back? Okay, great.
And there are just a few seats. There are a couple here and a couple right here. If anybody wants to come and sit, we can grab a few more chairs if necessary. So thanks, of course, to Megan. She's gone, and as you see, the Dairy Center. We do have some great agency partners here because we'll talk some about financial incentives and programs in our staff. Michelle Schaefer's, where are you? Are you in the room?
Way back.
Way back here. Norm Bruce, are you in the room here? Are you outside? You might be out at his table still. Thanks to SIG. SIG is Conservation Innovation Grant. This is part of the NRCS EQIP program that's helping to fund some of our energy district work on farms that I'll talk a little bit more about, and the SWCDs, so water districts as well. So this farm energy work is a partnership among many groups. Thanks to Kelly. Thanks to our farmer panelists, who will be introduced shortly enough as soon as we get there. Rural development, the RECs, Pat, John, are you here? REC folks? John is back here from LP Clayton. Is Pat in the room? No. Pat Boyle, I think, will be here. Maybe he's out here from Hawkeye as well. So they'll be able to answer some questions when we get to Q&A and the discussion, and possibly afterwards on interconnection and other issues. And thanks to all of our contractors and exhibitors as well. That's a big part, obviously, of why we're all here. So, Winneshiek Energy District. We could talk all day about this, but I'm not going to. We're a nonprofit based in Winneshiek County, but working beyond Winneshiek County around Northeast Iowa, especially for the ag energy work right now. We model ourselves after the soil and water conservation districts, which provide that locally led conservation planning in most counties in the country. And they work with state and federal partners. And we're trying to do the same thing with energy, not just in agriculture, also with homeowners, with businesses, with institutions, public entities. We're here today to talk about agriculture, and especially the center circle here, energy and climate planning. Not so much the climate side of things, though energy is a stewardship issue. It's a resource issue. And farmers are pretty good at stewardship. We do it in conservation, and energy is directly related to all of that work. So, planning is the technical side. So it's TA. It's many of you folks have worked with NRCS and FSA, getting your conservation plans. Again, that connection with energy district is pretty automatic. We do energy planning. So the contractors are all part of that process. The financials, the programs, cost shares, incentives are all part of that process. Planning tries to bring the whole thing together. The big picture for ag energy. In Winneshiek County, some analysis we did a couple years ago. That $38 million figure obviously is ballpark. It could be above and below that, but it's a lot of money. Energy is a significant input in agriculture. It's the single largest energy user in Iowa because it's our biggest industry, essentially. But as in all other aspects of your operations, when you keep input costs down, your profitability goes up. It's not always the biggest cost or input in the operation, but it's significant enough that when you address efficiency and renewables together, solar is just one piece of that, it can make a big difference. There are some really great opportunities that we're going to dig into today, both on the financial incentive side, on the technical assistance side, and that TA, FA is financial assistance, TA is technical assistance. Again, that's a core piece of what we're doing. The pie chart here is just a little bit of a breakdown, an example. Again, these are rough numbers of energy usage in agriculture in Winneshiek County. So that purple up here, facilities and operations, and of course there's power, electric use, and drying. When we talk solar photovoltaic, solar electric, it's just going to represent a piece of the potential total energy use on farms. A big piece of it, field operations, obviously tractor fuel and tillage operations. Fertilizer, ammonia, is just natural gas. It's the energy source used to make ammonia, and it's the feedstock used to make ammonia. So when we put fertilizer on our fields, essentially we're using, that's another energy input, that's a natural gas input. Most counties in Iowa probably use more natural gas fertilizing cornfields than they do in all buildings in the county for all natural gas use. Now in cities, obviously that's reversed, but it's a big energy input. So farm energy practices, again, I'm kind of zooming through this because we want to get more towards solar and the nitty gritty, and we're getting there. But in the big energy picture, you could spend a lot of money on solar without needing to spend that much on solar. This goes for homes, businesses, and farms, and that's just one example because when you do the efficiency first, you can cut your energy usage in various segments of your operation by 10, 20, 30, 40%. Then the renewable energy that you might want to build out can be a whole lot smaller and a whole lot more efficient and a whole lot more cost effective. So in facilities, obviously your energy usage can include lighting, ventilation, heating, HVAC systems, but ventilation, of course, is a big one in livestock facilities. Some of them need a significant amount of heating. Lighting, there's probably no single energy-related practice. Efficiency, renewables, farm business, power, transportation, anything that's more cost-effective right now than lighting conversions. Has anyone in here done lighting conversions in your facilities to LED, for example? Raise your hand if you have. A number of folks have, but many of you haven't. And if you're thinking about solar on a hog barn or a dairy barn or wherever it may be, you got to do that first because it's going to save you a lot of money. So dairy specifically, here we are at the dairy center. Many of you may or may not be dairy, but the dairy have many energy opportunities, especially in efficiency, in the pumps and motors, milk handling, cooling, hot water usage. A lot of those also have cost share available through programs to make those conversions, sometimes at really good rates. So you want to know about those again before you start planning a solar system. And then of course in field operations, this is a little tougher to get at in the analysis and in the improvement, the efficiency opportunities, but in tillage, in using cover crops, in obviously in nutrient management, again getting back to the nitrogen fertilizers, there are a lot of opportunities there for saving fuel, saving money. And our partners with NRCS and other organizations are really great at that and digging into that. And as we do whole farm energy planning, that's an important piece of the puzzle. So then we get down to renewables, which is where we're honing in on today. With solar, everybody's thinking solar. Renewable energy on farms can include a lot more than just solar, and that's where I'm starting to make the list. Nitrogen with a question mark. University of Minnesota and others are actually looking at technologies now. Technology in the energy world is moving very fast that might allow you to use on-farm sources, whether it's solar, methane, or your digesters or whatnot, to make your own ammonia. That would be pretty interesting. If we can get it to a cost-effective level, that's an amazing advantage. Storage is not cost-effective now, but this could be batteries, it could be other kinds of energy storage. as we'll discuss, when you do electricity, you're generally going to feed excess back into the grid. The grid is your battery. But at some point, it may be cost effective for many of us, including farms, to have storage right there as part of your system. I know I'm moving through this. Are there any quick questions before I jump ahead? So farm energy planning. This is the take home for the first part of our workshop today, because we really want to put solar in the context of a farm energy plan. Obviously, you're welcome to work directly with a solar installer and put up a system next week if they can get you scheduled. How many of you could get a system up next week? Do you think? Joel?
Some red tape you have to take care of first.
It can go pretty quickly. A lot of homeowners actually nowadays have just jumped straight to that even before they do the energy planning and the efficiency. Most folks, though, pretty much know that this needs to be considered in a context, and on farms you really do want to do that. So when we're looking at farm energy planning, we as the energy district do not do solar installations. That's all their job. What we're trying to do is get on farms and do this holistic analysis of energy use, all parts of your operation. Look at your objectives, figure out where the opportunities are, where the financial incentives are, and help you essentially move through the process. And so solar is a piece of that puzzle. Economic analysis is also a piece of that puzzle. Farm energy analysis hasn't been widely available. Our system isn't perfect. We've got some good technical resources, and we work with a lot of other technical resources, including the installers and the contractors. But that's a place to start. So, talk to us. Kayla or I, one of us will probably be out at the Energy District table here after the discussion part here, and the other one of us will be in here, maybe either right here or at that table over there. So we'll be taking sign-ups for the farm energy planning work we're doing, which has really just been getting underway this year. At this point, are probably just as good without Alliance rebate as they were 2 years ago with Alliance rebate. That's how much it cost for this. So on-farm solar, of course, also includes solar PV and solar thermal. And that's a distinction I want to get at in just a second. First of all, solar versus wind. Has anyone in here installed wind for agricultural usage? It's not that uncommon, and it was part of many financial incentive programs, including your state programs, even a decade ago. And some farmers put in some good wind systems and had it paid off pretty well, but some of those systems haven't paid off pretty well, in large part because of maintenance. In bullet number 2, it should be bullet number 1. Wind has a lot of moving parts. And there's just been a lot of manufacturers that came and went. And farmers probably understand that better than most. You've got plenty of things to maintain. You've got a shop full, you don't need to maintain turbines. And it's probably not something you want to get into. Also because of, first of all, scale and efficiency. It makes a lot of sense for a mid-American to put up turbines that get, 400 feet up in the air. There's twice as much wind power up there. Maybe not twice as much, there's a lot more. The wind down here, closer to where you might put a turbine on your farm, there's not nearly as much production. It's not as scalable. You can't just add another few kW whenever you want to. It's not as easy to site. You have to be a certain amount above the highest thing within 500 feet or more. So it's just, there are a lot of issues around solar and wind. Wind is better for utility scale. Solar is better for consumer scale. In general, that's just the way it's playing. And that's why we're seeing solar happen everywhere. And you might think, well, yeah, for homeowners in town, of course, they can't put up a wind turbine. I can do it on my farm. These issues are pretty much the reason most farmers are still going to be better off with solar than with wind. Warranties are much better as well with solar. Typically, you've got 25-year warranties on most or all parts involved in solar panels, and that's not the case in wind. So solar PV. Solar photovoltaic for electrical production on your farm. How does it work? Ask the contractor. You'll get into a lot more of this if you, obviously, the nitty-gritty, if and when you start planning the system. But the basics, you put up the panels, and they, as you can see, they don't have to be roof-mounted. They can be roof-mounted or ground-mounted. Photons and sunlight create an electrical current in the panels. It's a direct current. You need an inverter in that process to make the AC current, and then that gets used. typically in your own circuitry, on your operation, and almost all solar PV systems are grid tied. So you're also connected to the grid, and your surplus gets fed right back to the grid. And then, of course, you're using the grid. So it's not like you're sacrificing your grid connection at all. You're hooked up to the grid. You overproduce typically most systems, not all, but most systems if they're sized on an annual basis to provide a major percentage of your use. During those hot sunny days are going to produce more than you're using at any given moment in time that goes into the grid. So you get credited for that, and you use what you need when you need it. You get credited for that is a big piece of the puzzle, of course. How much do you get credited? How much can you generate? These are all issues of the nitty-gritty that we will get to some in the discussion and do some Q&A, but you'll also hear a lot more about it if you start talking to utilities. Thankfully, you get credited one-to-one in most cases up to a certain amount, and that's a really, really good opportunity. It didn't always used to be that way. The inverters here, one piece of this puzzle that's good to know, these inverters used to be standalone, and they still are in many cases, but in many cases now they're built right into the panels. Microinverters, so every panel has its own inverter. And those, there are pluses and minuses both ways, and again, if you talk to contractors, you'll hear a lot more about that. A lot of different uses. Rooftop is simple and easy, and as long as you've got the right roof and the right orientation, and it's in pretty good shape, it makes sense. Ground mount makes great sense too. Usually a little bit more expensive, not a lot, not usually so. You can certainly use that space for other things as well. And of course, microsystems, smaller systems elsewhere that may not be grid tied. That you may need to run a solar pump for livestock water or something else. So jumping to the other part of thermal, solar, which is solar thermal, which is not as common, and people aren't necessarily thinking about solar for hot water use when they think solar. But it is fairly common, and solar hot water heating is quite economical in many cases, in certain instances, and especially to dairies, which many of you are coming from dairy farms and have significant hot water needs and demand. So again, it's a pretty simple idea that you use the sunshine to heat a liquid. If it's a freeze-protected system, you can have direct where your water is being heated and run through, or you can have it heating not water, or glycol, or some other solution, antifreeze type solution, and that heat is then transferred into your hot water storage tanks. Usually a separate tank for your solar hot water preheater, and then going in, and essentially it's like a grid tie solar PV system. It's not your only energy source. It's just supplementing what you've already got and providing a significant percentage of that total energy need. So for dairies, these can be quite economical, and we do have a couple of solar thermal contractors here as well, if you want to talk about solar hot water. Where are we on time? 1:30. Okay, so you ready, Kelly? Just about. Interconnection and net metering are issues that we can dig into more probably during the panel and Q&A. Obviously, with solar PV, you're going to tie into the grid in most cases. You're going to be grid connected. You need to have these interconnection processes and procedures and agreements with utility. And John, Pat, maybe can tell us a little bit more about that too directly during the Q&A. The taxes and depreciation, obviously Kelly's going to get into that. The panelists can tell you the story. For those that have already done it, we do have a handful of farms that have already done more than a handful, a couple of handfuls that have done it in Winneshiek and surrounding counties. But again, I want to reiterate, do talk to us if you're interested in the whole farm energy plan. After the discussion here today, talk to Kayla or I, and we'll start getting you signed up. We won't be able to do 50 farm energy plans in the next month, but we'll certainly be able to put you in the schedule and work in that direction. So hopefully, if you're interested in solar, put your solar in the context of all your other energy use on the farm. With that, Kelly, let me back out of this.
Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Brickley, a CPA with Hector Nelson, Cora. So we have offices in Decorah, New Hampton, and Waukon. Going to give you like 30,000-foot view of the solar tax incentives from the federal and Iowa perspective, and then, probably what works best is if I go through this and then we just go through a few questions or let you guys ask what you want to hear. My presentation here's got a blend. When it says commercial, that also applies ag. And I'll just breeze over the residential too, because there may be somebody that want that. So right now we have a 30% federal income tax credit as long as your solar project is placed in service by December 31st of 16. Those unused tax credits on the commercial side carry forward 7 years. So I'm going to say that the residential side, I've read it both ways where they carry forward, but I've also read that the tax law does not say that they carry forward. Third bullet point there, tax credit does not offset self-employment taxes, only income taxes. On farm, probably your biggest or one of your larger tax burdens is self-employment tax. You're paying 15.3% self-employment tax on the farm profit. Solar credits will not offset that tax, only income tax. In most situations, the credit is eligible to offset alternative minimum tax, which we see more and more. So on the residential side, and it's actually the same. I'll just skip to that commercial slide. So commercial, you got to use the solar energy to generate electricity or provide hot water to a structure, which is what Andy just went through. Partnerships, LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, everybody's eligible for the credit. Let's say you're organized as a partnership, 2 people 50-50 earn $10,000 worth of credit. That credit split $5,000 each, and it transfers. It flows all the way down, just like your income does now, all the way down to a personal income tax return. Third bullet point there: businesses may depreciate the solar panels over 5 years. So you buy $100,000 worth of solar panels, and you get to depreciate $85,000 of that purchase. You've got to reduce your basis by half of the federal tax credit that you claim. Last bullet point here: you can't claim the Section 179 deduction. That's the big deduction for most of you, $500,000 in a year. If you're going to claim tax credit, but the solar panels are not eligible for that. For the Section 179 deduction. Solar panels, if they would put the 50% bonus depreciation back in place, which is not in place as of now for 15, it was put back in place for 14, but if they would put it in place, it is likely that you would get to write off 50% of that $85,000 in that little example that I referred to. So the upfront tax benefits are definitely there. Iowa solar incentives. So Iowa has very generous, to say the least, solar incentives. For residential projects, 60% of your federal energy credit, residential energy credit, limited to $5,000. Commercial, it's 60% of the federal energy credit, limited to $20,000. Iowa credit carries forward 10 years. And that last bullet point is probably one of the bigger ones, is you can claim an Iowa credit for each separate and distinct installation. For example, operate 5 different hog barns, put it on 5 different ones, you could claim 5 $20,000 tax credits. And we have seen that done. Iowa tax credits, you have to apply to receive those tax credits. Federal tax credits, simply fill out your tax return in a form, it's all taken care of there. Iowa, you have to apply for the tax credit, and they will send you a letter. Not hard, not difficult, but you do have to remember to apply. I will tell you that I'm working with people right now that did not apply, so you have to go back and apply. Iowa has a $4.5 million cap, and those credits are doled out on a first-come, first-served basis. In 2014, they met the cap. I'm not exactly sure when, but it was sometime late in the year. Put an installation in 15, and let's say that the 15 credit is all used up, you automatically fall in line to take the first allocation of the 2016 credit. I would tell you that with what I've seen, I can't imagine that the credit lasts past November. We have seen 25% of the 2014 installations we've seen have not gotten their Iowa credit, and they've been getting it.
And there's a proposal in the legislature right now to up that, actually up 2 of the solar credits, but including this one, from 4.5 to 6.5 million.
Okay.
It would take effect right now. And so if you're interested, call your elected officials, because they're considering it right now, this week and next week, in the
Okay.
budget process. And that would help greatly with the cap. And
Yeah,
what year you might get in.
I checked this, that last bullet point. If you go to the Iowa Department of Revenue's website, you type in solar, it'll bring up a page, or it'll connect you to a page, and it really talks about more than what I'm talking about here. It did not say as of this morning how far into the 15 credit, and I haven't actually talked to anybody that's gotten a 15 letter yet. I'm not sure that they've started issuing those. But like I said, I can't imagine that it's going to last if it stays at 4.5. It's what we have seen that just carry over is a lot. Okay. Really simple Simon examples. Talk about a residential project with a $25,000 cost. The taxpayer, you're going to get a $7,500 federal credit and an Iowa tax credit of $4,500 in that situation. Both claimable the year that project goes in service. Bullet point number 2, a business project or an agricultural project, either one. $75,000 cost. You're going to get a $22,500 tax credit and an Iowa tax credit of $13,500. And over 5 years, a business or farm will get to depreciate $63,750 of the solar panels.
Is that for the panels, or is that for the total installation?
Total installation. I mean, I guess, I have not made a distinguish. I mean, if I see an invoice and the whole thing is $26,000, that's what we go with. We're not distinguishing panels versus other parts. All right. Now my qualification, and simply because everybody's tax situation in this room is different, and in all likelihood, some of the most complex that we see are the ag stuff. If you're going to go down this path, visit with your tax preparer. Sit down with them, make sure that if you're going to earn $13,000 worth of credit, you can reasonably use that over 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever it is. Tax credit's great. I've got somebody that earned $7,500. This was a residential situation, $7,500 in tax credits, but guess what? They haven't paid income tax for 3 years. It doesn't, I mean, it's a great deal, like solar, but if the tax incentives are not helping them pay for that project. All right, my contact info. If you would like copies of these slides, just send me an email. I've got them in a PDF, I'll send them out. You can email me or call me and ask questions, that's not a problem. I will tell you I'm not going to reply to you until after next Wednesday. Anyway, that's kind of the fast overview. What have you got for questions? That's probably the best way for me to get information out. I've been involved in 5 or 6 agricultural 25 residential and probably 20 commercial projects throughout the last several years. So, I mean, hopefully there's something that I have seen or somebody in my office.
Do you know where we're at with third-party ownership?
Meaning, I mean, somebody that is not the farmer.
Right.
Okay, so we've got two paths there. Path number one, where your non-farmer leases the panels to the farmer. And I will generally say that that doesn't provide a very good tax result. Because that person that leases, if I lease solar panels to you, I'm passive, and my tax benefits are really shut down at that point. So there's a lot of, without getting too deep into it, there's passive activity rules, there's a lot of stuff that really gets you, it just shuts those tax benefits down. And that's something that I've looked at for 3 years, and we just have not found a great way to get around it. And make that work. Second path is where I would actually install something to sell you the power. And that's something that to be honest with you, I mean, I know that it's coming. I know that it's a power purchase agreement, and there's probably some of the Andy or you maybe talk to me more about. But that's the other path, and that would be where I actually own panels on your farm and sell you the power. Establish a rate and sell you the power. I would tell you that I generally expect that tax result to be a lot better. I've not done that yet, but I expect that to be a lot better.
And then is there an expiration on the state incentives?
It's the same as the federal right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be. Well, actually, it would have to be. Meaning, federal incentive or the state incentive simply says, hey, you get 30% of what you got for federal credit. Well, the federal credit expires December 31st, 16, so does the Iowa effect.
Which it does.
Right. I mean, the state is simply saying you get a percentage of what the federal rules are. The state really doesn't make any like. If you ask me, I don't know what the definition of a solar project is. It all refers back to federal tax code. The Iowa just says, hey, federal gives it to you, you're in.
Okay. The USDA, is there any incentive there anymore?
For renewable energy?
Yeah.
Yes. And Norm is going to be, Norm Bruce with USDA Rural Development, is in the back of the room, he's going to be out of this table over here. And so the REAP program, Rural Energy for America program, still supports, still, even more so than ever probably, does support renewable energy projects. Cheryl Schaefer's within RCS is here, and RCS, EQIP, and other cost share programs are mostly efficiency oriented, not so much renewables oriented, though there are one or two little things where they're renewables, and they may be more so in the future. And I just want to reiterate, tax credits, which are the biggest single financial incentive here, at this point, expire at the end of next year. And that likely means systems hooked up and running, not something in process. So that's pretty important to know. Well, will they get extended? Who knows? But that's essentially 30% federal, another 15 to 20% Iowa. That's a big chunk. More questions for Kelly?
Are there incentives for thermal, solar thermal?
Yeah, tax credits.
Tax credits mean for solar water.
Yeah.
Yep. Everything I just talked about there is for electricity or water.
Okay, same figures?
Same figures.
Family farm, presently you have shared utilities, farm, and your residence.
Haven't ever seen this tested. My take on it is if you can prove that more, the bulk of your utility bill is for farm, running a dairy operation, running hog, Then your primary purpose for putting it in is business, and you would get these business incentives. Maybe it's reasonable that you would need to make an allocation of 10% of the project to running your residence, although, again, haven't done that. I mean, haven't seen that done. I guess I would say that I would be comfortable with, if the primary purpose you're putting it in is to run a hog house, to run a grain site, we're gonna take it as depreciable and go that route.
I thought you were required to install a meter, a different meter.
To get the tax credits?
Well, to separate your farm from the residence.
No, I have not. I guess that would be an REC or an Alliant thing, if it is. I mean, I guess that's not the case.
It's historically been a requirement of the Rural Energy for America program, so that's probably where that question is coming from.
Okay, yeah.
And Norm, maybe you could speak to that too. How does REAP bust that out in terms of, it's my understanding that now you can do a percentage. So show your historical energy use and your home is 10% of that. And so you say if you're applying for a REAP grant, you can say to REAP, okay, well 10% is for my house, so the REAP grant will be given based on the 90% that's for my farm. Is that correct, Norm?
Largely right. Historically, we required a second meter to make sure anything not used by the business did not go to the residents. Some new rules as of a couple of months ago would allow the applicant to do an energy audit on the house to determine how much energy the house uses, and then the application be limited to what the business side of the meter uses.
As a taxpayer, who's gonna pay this? I mean, if they're giving out these rebates, we have to, all of us collectively pay.
Yeah, the simple side answer to that is yes. If you pay Iowa tax, you pay federal tax, you are paying for some of these credits or all of these credits that are being claimed on tax.
So, on the federal tax credits or federal and state tax credits, if I get a solar array installed this year, however much it is, and I can't use all of the tax credit this year, so basically I only have 1 year to use up that tax credit, is that right? Or can you, like how far forward can you use up those tax credits?
Federal will go 7, and state will go 10.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're on a commercial or an agricultural. Yeah, you've got
You got some years to that if you can't use all those tax credits.
yes.
Can I ask a question about the farmstead? Units set up, and I have a family farmstead or house in the milking barn and all that hooked up. I did it 3 years ago, and at that time, they went through, I had to go through all kinds of paperwork and stuff, but they went through and figured out how much my house was taking, but they will not. You separate that out. I have a special meter that I put on that goes to the farm, and it isn't like they're out there reading it all the time. It's part of the paper trail. I don't know if that's still in effect or not.
And Rick, do you know if that was a requirement of REAP or was that a requirement?
I worked with Norm back there and Michelle Schaefer's. I worked with her some other stuff too. So it was mostly Norm with I think it was
Yeah. And that's perfectly reasonable. Meaning when you put a $100,000 project in, and okay, maybe you only got to depreciate 95,000 of it.
And it wasn't no big deal. I mean, they're gonna come out and you gotta do that's something changed. You do a big energy audit to start with, and you're gonna wanna do that to find out where you're sitting. You have no idea what's going where. I mean, you know how much every motor on your place is taking for energy, and sometimes it'll surprise you, it's going.
Right. And I've seen that, but perfectly reasonable to have something to do that and to separate out the resident. I mean, you know, you should be reasonably on your farm. You're separating out your farm or your residential house facilities versus your farm now. You should reasonably. So, what you have to go with play.
Kelly, I guess I have one question. Have you done any tests on an operation, a farm operation, that's also been part of a REAP grant? And if so, how does this work together with the tax credits?
Have not. I've done a grant. I'm not even sure. I think it's more in this input program than it's for. And the easy statement that I can make probably about that is that that grant is income. You get paid, that grant is income in the year that you get it. Now, typically you would be able to deduct, or you will be able to deduct from the depreciation on those panels offsets that. You would not be required to reduce tax credits when you get that grant. So the depreciation is going to offset that.
Not appreciated over 5 years.
No, but also if you take if the federal bonus would come back into play, you could take 50% of it up front. Yes. Credit would offset. Most of the time what I've seen, you're right, most of the time what I've seen is that the first year depreciation just about gets, I say that, most of those that I saw, that was actually in a line of rebate. So that rebate pretty much matched up with what we're getting in depreciation in the first year. Wasn't perfect, but it did. On the commercial ones that I worked with, that's the way it works.
Do you have any more questions for Kelly? Since it is tax season, we might not ask him to stick around for the question A. So we're running a little ahead of schedule, so I'd encourage folks to ask any tax-related questions right now. All right, thanks, Kelly.
Kelly, you're our tax guy. We put in the hot water system, heats hot water, it was $28,000. And they said we get 30% off, years back.
30% tax credit.
How come we only got 5,000? You must have made a mistake.
I happen to know the CPA that worked on yours, and he knows his stuff.
So why did you go wrong?
Well, there's first of all, none of these credits are refundable. You're not ever going to get a check back. You got to pay taxes.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Get the credit, you gotta have a profit.
Well, you're going to earn the credit if you spend money. That's the. I mean, even if you lose $100,000 next year, if you spend $100 on solar, you're going to get $30,000 in tax credits. Simple math. It's just that you won't be able to use them because you're not paying any income. Well, no, I get it. This is not the best margin in the world.
The guy ends up paying more in the long term, being the taxpayer. You think it's so good today, next week or 10 years from now, we'll pay for it one way or another.
You are saving money with the hot water heat. It's heating the water, so every day we do save money.
I'll call you. You got to understand, I've looked at 300 tax credits in the last 10 days. There's and everybody, like I said, everybody's got a little different twist. There's,
one scenario that's out there is if you do have retirement accounts that are both IRAs and IRA, you can take income by converting an IRA to a Roth IRA.
Correct.
That's income for that year. You don't have enough money, and then that Roth is never taxable.
I agree.
I mean, if you need to take the credit,
Yeah, if you need to use up the
and
credit,
you
you're looking.
need income,
Right.
and that's a convenient way, if you have the ability in terms of
You have the ability,
retirement
yeah.
IRAs, to take the income that year, you need the credit. So maybe there are other scenarios around that.
Oh,
To
there's,
take income.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that would be, that's definitely a strategy that I've used to generate income for someone. My observation would be I generally don't find a ton of 40 to 60-year-old farmers with big IRAs. They're all saying my farm is my retirement.
It's in the land or the farm, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what they're saying, so it's hard to take that.
The credits carry forward 7 to 10 years though, correct?
Correct.
So you've got 7 to 10 years to make money to use these credits.
Yes.
So if you're not gonna make money for 10 years, you might think about a different business.
All right, well, if that's all the questions for Kelly, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to have some farmers that have installs come up and sit in our fancy tall chairs here. So if everybody else, if you are needing to stretch or, shake it up a little bit, feel free to kind of stand and do the hokey pokey and whatever. And we'll get Carlton Jost, Roger Eglin, and Miles Luzin up here, and they can talk to us a little bit about their